that the most incredible thing has happened in Mecca, one of the holiest cities of Islam, which is disappearing from the floods that have ravaged Saudi Arabia. The city is at the center of unexpected storms. But it's not just rain. There are events taking place that are breathtaking and shocking to the faithful, drawing the attention of the world in this. In this video, we're going to explore what it could be. Whether this is just another natural or the wrath of God. Is this really what's happening? Is that the grass is something profound or even prophetic? We'll find out in the next few minutes. Imagine this. A place that is very important to many people called Mecca, where people come to feel special, connected to something big. Suddenly there's something ravishing, something strange without warning. A large amount of water appears, like it's a huge pool that just appeared out of nowhere. It's very strange because Mecca Ponto Final is a sacred place for many people who go there in search of peace and comfort. This water affects not only on the streets and buildings of the Mecca, but also on the hearts of the people who visit. Imagine 1 million people go there to feel and suddenly find water everywhere. It's like the water was playing in strands, and the place where it decided to show up was the Mecca. And it's not. The Mecca isn't the only one facing this. The whole country where the Mecca is called Saudi Arabia is trying to figure out what to do with this number of water. Like there's a big surprise and trying to figure out what to do next. You can see in the images that the streets are full of water. The consecrated areas are trying to stay dry, as if the water is trying to invade the places where people come to feel connected to what the grass with. It's big. So even though the Mecca Ponto is a very special place, sometimes even there strange things happen there too. Everyone's talking about it, trying to figure out how something like this could happen in a place so important to so many people. Want to understand how it happened. We're not only watching, but we're investigating to find out what caused this intriguing flood. It's not just about seeing what happened, but it's also about to find out why, if there's a reason this flood has changed so much in the Mecca, where people come to pray and to feel close to something that's important. Special, important structures have been affected, and communities are feeling a tug of war. Other nature is angry, and Saudi Arabia, which we usually think of as an arid and hot place, now can tell a new story. The mysterious. The weather has wreaked havoc with pilgrims, closed schools, and turned the landscape into a breathtaking spectacle. This captivating tale will tell how an unexpected storm has hit the Mecca and what it could mean for modern times. Images captured on an online TV station. Videos show pilgrims dancing an intriguing dance around the mysterious Black Kuba, where Muslims are directing their prayers in a desperate attempt to escape the wet and slippery grip. The rain has wreaked havoc, and to add a little electricity to the narrative, a fearless bolt of lightning struck the sky, striking the famous Tel Aviv. Storms proved fierce in the intriguing the region. Scarlet wind speeds exceeded 80 km per hour in one day. The Mecca experienced a sky flood measuring 45 mm, almost 2 inches of Ponto flow. Remarkable cascade of water in such a short period of time. The streets turned into rivers, forcing residents to seek shelter and abandon all thought of driving. This unforgettable storm was a reminder of a landmark event of 2015, when, during the storm, a crane collapsed. A large mosque, when a crane collapsed on top of the mosque, leaving scars and injuries. However, this time fate smiled differently and after the fury of the storms. No serious injuries or accidents. Serious injuries or accidents. A comforting turn of events in the midst of the storm, emphasizing the chaff's resilience. In the face of the vagaries of the weather after that, things went a little better. But people were still worried. Experts said that in this area, other parts of western Saudi Arabia could see more rain, wind and thunderstorms, which led the government of the region to decide to close some schools for safety reasons. Safety concerns. People who were there when the storm hit were very frightened. A man named Abu Maya said that everything went dark, he lost the trolley over his car and felt very confused and frightened. Another man, Mohammed, said that the scenes around the big mosque were terrifying. Another man, Joseph, mentioned that although in Mecca in August, there are often strong winds, the storm was the strongest he had ever seen. The flood was compared to a new flood. Well, the recent torrential rainstorms in the Mecca may be reminiscent of ancient events recorded in the Bible. The great flood at the time of Noah, like Noah's flood. This event terrified the people, raising questions of divine punishment and warnings, with one question on everyone's mind. How at the time, but also learned that the waters had receded and it was safe to leave the ark. The answer to that question has to do with the blue man who returned with an olive branch. This event was an important moment to reassure Noah that the flood waters were receding and it was safe to leave the ark. Then in Noah's time, something terrible happened that caused God, as punishment, to send a devastating flood. The Bible emphasizes that the cause of this judgment was the rampant sin on the earth. The flood also represents a future judgment that God may on the whole earth. According to current conditions in the Mecca, the flood was God's way of restarting creation by preventing the end of all life on earth as a result of the devastating the flood, an act that can be seen as literally all life on earth. God restores his creation by returning to a state reminiscent of the beginning, when he formed the earth by bringing out of the water the earth and the animals. Moreover, in the flood, God, at least symbolically, returns the earth to the state in which it before the existence of humans. This radical measure is portrayed as a response to the moral decay of mankind. The Bible tells us that God decided to punish this decay with a great flood, when the waters rose above the highest, and the rain continued for 40 days and nights. Amazingly, the numbers kept rising for a total of 150 days, which indicates the seriousness of divine intervention in understanding revelation. The Bible. So why does God resort to the flood? The flood is a means of punishment. The biblical record in Genesis 61 provides understanding. And God looked upon the earth and saw that it was scattered pontoon, which is in stark contrast to the original. God's original statement in Genesis 131, where after the creation of the earth God saw all that he had created and it was very well. The abrupt change in God's perspective is remarkable. If you think about this biblical account, it's important to keep in mind that in 10th generation from Adam, mankind has been plunged into wickedness, evil, violence and corruption, and in this grim scenario, only 4 men and 4 women were spared from divine judgment, standing out by submitting to God's judgment. The pervasive sin that engulfed the rest of humanity. Moreover, in the 6th, in this verse of Genesis, there is a touching the revelation that God repented for having created man on earth and deeply troubled his Pontou heart in response to this. Disturbing realization God makes. A decision to take radical action ponto. Of destroying all life on earth. It would appear that God has been taken. Surprised by the extent of human. A superficial reading might suggest. An angry God wanting to wipe everything. From a clean slate and start over. Moreover, in being 6:5 and behold, he sheds light on God's point of view by pointing out the extreme depravity of mankind and noting that every inclination of their hearts was directed toward evil. Faced with this disturbing reality, God decided to wipe mankind off the face of the earth. Similar expressions are repeated in Genesis 6:11 and 13, emphasizing once again the gravity of the situation. Of the situation, God commissions Noah to preserve the remnants of life on earth, emphasizing urgent interventions. It seems that mankind has reached a critical point, on the brink of self-destruction. If not to stop, the prevailing evil could lead to its destruction. God, in his wisdom, decided to intervene and put an end the widespread evil of those days. Moreover, in the being 614 of the narrative goes deeper, providing important details and of God's decision to cause the destruction of the world. Although this story may seem fantastic in Jude 1:6 and according to Peter 2:4, some speculation have to do with the Book of Enoch and the fallen angels. These passages say that these angels were punished, which makes us to wonder if there's more to this story. There's more to this story than meets the eye. And Peter take the story of Enoch seriously. Enoch's story, urging us not to reject it. Immediately their words seem to draw inspiration from the Book of Enoch, making it clear that there may be more to the story of the fallen angels. More than we realize, given that could the cause of the flood go beyond unbridled human evil is not an alternative explanation but an additional layer to the story of the fall of angels affecting mankind. It becomes less obvious causally God's decision to judge and bring the flood. If you to view the judgment and the flood from this perspective, we can say that the flood was not only a cleansing of human malice but also chained the fallen angels in chains for future God's judgment. The flood served a dual purpose: to cleanse the earth and to restrain the rebels. However, Peter and the Corinthians add more depth by looking at historical events in the scriptures as lessons. The punishment of mankind in the form of the flood becomes an example for us, and the fallen angels are specifically mentioned, which is connected to the flood of time as a lesson for the wicked. It's obvious that God will not immediately punish every mistake we make. We make according to the Bible. God does not execute judgment immediately. However, he does provides us with examples like those that can be found in the book of Revelation, showing that punishment, though deferred but certain, the two twin purposes of the flood. Why the flood occurred has two main reasons. First, quite simple as it is mentioned in the Bible, and the villages. The villages, because of the sinfulness of mankind, people did not follow the rules and things stopped. Very bad evil has reached the peak, perhaps with some help from a group of fallen angels of grace, but there's another, a deeper reason. As the Bible says, the Bible's example for us is the flood. God's takes human sinfulness. Sinfulness, even though the flood was a one-time event, is a reminder that judgment awaits for those who continue to rebel against creators. The Bible teaches us that human beings are ponto file, are special beings created in the image of God. We must live by the rules He made. And when we break those rules, punishment follows. Why? Because God, in His holiness and justice, has decided to punish the wicked. and the disobedient. Sometimes we see this punishment in our lives, but the greatest of them all comes on the day of judgment in Revelation. Revelations. Now let's talk about judgment. The Bible in 20 it's described when God looked at the people who lived on the earth at the time of Noah, he decided that their actions deserved consequences, which brings us to another. The cause of the flood. Considering why the flood happened in Noah's day in the eyes of the Bible, it's a little hard to think about it. Is like a painting showing the final judgment of God. Jesus himself used this as an example, saying that it's a glimpse of what the world will be like before he would come to establish his kingdom. The flood took the people by surprise because they didn't heed the warning of God. Jesus put it this way: but as in the days of Noah, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. Ponto Fanal. Because only Noah, his sons and their wives were saved from the flood, while everyone else, the rest, were threatened with destruction and Satan's failed attempts and God's triumph. Satan has been trying to mess things up. In Genesis 3, verse 15 says that he tried many ways to prevent the coming of the one who would triumph. He tried everything, like in Egypt, by making babies drown and then using different people to harm the Israelites. He even tried very hard when Jesus was born. Remember Herod's plan? But here's the thing, God had another. He spared his family, but he spared his family, too. In spite of Satan's devious schemes, God made sure that mankind still had a way to save themselves. Jesus, God in human form, was proof that Satan's plans didn't work. God, that he was in control by breaking Satan's stratagem, Satan's tricks through his own God's children and the flood. Who? These children of God. Different ideas circulating among ancient Jewish thinkers, earlier Christian interpreters, and even the authors of the New Testament, having their own opinions in angelic interpretation. Many believed that the children, God's natural beings, are angels. This belief dates back to ancient times and was accepted by both the ancient Jews and early Christian authors in the 6 RVS and the chapter of existence. They saw these children, God's children, because they couldn't have been to be mere men, because they had a good relationship with God only, and his family were seen as righteous, with consequences and divine mercy. This scenario raises the question, can angels can have relationships with humans? Is an intriguing topic that people are discussing. Something happened that led to such great consequences, like the floods. Talking about these angels, we can understand what happened. Watching what happened to the Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah, they were knit themselves into a different flesh that was not to be in their stories, which led to the fact that they were kept in darkness, chained in chains. For the great day trial, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is like a warning sign. They were knit together in immoral, filthy, serving as an example of what happens when you go down that road. Eternal flame and all that. God doesn't like that kind of behavior. But as far as God is concerned, even when he's going to punish, he's got mercy. Think of the flood. God was not silent about it, but preached a sermon about how to do the right thing in this way. So God's mercy in the flood was available to those who were willing to believe and heed the warning and follow the way of salvation. When men turn away from God's mercy, his judgment takes effect, but God follows the pattern. As in the days of Noah, he warns of what is coming and offers a way out. The ark was then the only refuge. Now it's like the image of Jesus. Christ is the only one who can save from our plight. Here comes the grass and the drowning. The gospel appears. It's like the key to salvation. The message says that Christ died for our sins, was buried, and then resurrected. It's about trusting Jesus. Believing in the fact that He did it all for us, there's no other to be saved except through Him. It's not just about hearing the message, but it's about standing firm in it. When you trust the gospel, you're saved. You're saved, but it has to stay with you. It's not something you believe for a moment and then forget it. It's a matter of following the message you've heard about Jesus. Now we want to know what you think about the horrifying event that took place at the Mecca. Don't feel free to leave your opinion in the comments. If you like this video, please like it. And if you want to stay up to date with upcoming content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching until now.